It looks like this broadcast was deleted on Facebook. Try creating a new broadcast or just remove this destination from the heads up. Facebook requires you go live before 20. Fucking is. Why is it? You have 15 minutes after the community page. Whatever. We should be live on everything else right now, I'm pretty sure. So we're just gonna ride with it. Whatever. Go ahead and share it over to the other ones. What's going on, everybody? Sorry for the initial, I don't know, whatever the hell. Hey, Dante, how's it going? For whatever reason, StreamYard's not letting us post to the community group, which is where we like to make sure that we push this over on. But technical difficulties. It's the good thing about live shows is you get to deal with those in front of everybody. But we'll get it pushed over into the Facebook community and then from the REI SIF page itself. Okay. So let's just kind of like cut, restart, and go from here. So everybody, welcome to the Ninja Cast. Today we have Alex Harshman. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. From Maryland. He's a dad. He said, what did he call it? He called it the stay-at-home dad, and then he said, but also the breadwinner. So I ended up renaming that to stay-at-home breadwinner. He's working 4 to 6 hours in his business right now, and he has some just monster cash out refi duplex, I believe, in a quad. We're going to break it all down on how Alex has only 10,000 records at the time. Now he only has 16,000 records inside of his account. And he, runs a business that's paying him cash flow through picking up properties. He's also doing some wholesaling stuff, but we're going to break it all down. Let me just bring him up here. Alex, man, I appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story with all the ninjas.
Glad to be here.
Little messy in the start, whatever. I got to kind of deal with what we got, I guess. It's not letting me go live in the Facebook community group, as you probably heard. I think you can hear what I'm saying down in the little bottom room. But dude, let's just jump right into it, okay? Let's jump into it. Let's hear the background of what you got going on. You're a Air Force vet. Let's start before that though. Where'd you grow up and all that good stuff?
Yep. So I lived and grew up here in Western Maryland my whole life. And then I was working at Best Buy as a sales guy selling phones for Best Buy Mobile. It's kind of where I learned my sales skills. I was the guy who was scared to get on the phones, to schedule my own medical appointments, to do class presentations. I would stutter, lose my breath. I was just super shy. And of course, I joined the military and they knocked that out of you really quick. They made me an instructor where I was, teaching pilots several days a week and then just getting out there and exposing myself. So, but long story short, I had a kid in the military, decided it wasn't for me, and I wanted to spend time with my kids. So I got out with no plan. Actually, my plan was to work for my dad. It didn't work out, as working with family typically does. And we just kind of butt heads and had different ideas and philosophies on life. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and dove headfirst into real estate. And one thing led to another, networking. I stumbled upon wholesaling, and that's where I got my start.
I love it. It's so funny. We have a really similar story overall. I didn't work at Best Buy, but the reason I got out of the Air Force was because of well, actually, I think we knew that Tesla was on the way. We didn't have Tesla yet, but I also went to go work with my dad afterwards and did not work out well at all. Just a lot of fighting and we butted heads a ton. And here we are today, wholesaling and all that good stuff. So that's really interesting. So what when you got out, what did you do as soon as you got out? When did you get out of the Air Force?
I got out in 2017.
Okay, so you got out in
Yes.
2017. Um, did you already know about real estate before getting out?
I did not. So it's kind of a funny story. I was working for my dad, and then when that fell apart, I had nothing. And ironically, the same month, my brother had a destination wedding, and I had like 7 grand in my bank account, and it was going to cost us 3 grand to send the family out there. So I was deciding whether or not to go to my brother's wedding or tell him, hey, I'm not going to be able to show up to your wedding. And I thought to myself, if it was me, I'd want him to still come out. So I did. And we got to talking after his wedding about real estate. And he said something about the tenants paying for the mortgage. And a light bulb in my head just clicked. And then I just bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad because I think I saw it on a forum. And I mean, it was just the rest is history.
So your brother got you into real estate.
More or less, yeah. And that's the guy I bought the duplex with just to kind of bring him in the real estate because he's not so much.
So so he knew about he researched about real estate, but he never took action on it. Is that
Right.
okay? But
He's kind
then
of like my dad. He's a really hard worker guy, and that's all he's done.
okay, cool. So I mean that's really interesting, and that's something we're going to get into is how you kind of pulled in your family into what you're doing. Okay, so you started reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and stuff, and when did you stumble across wholesaling in general?
So I put a post out in Bigger Pockets and I said, hey, I'm looking to get into real estate. I thought I was just going to buy a 4 unit with no money. And I just said, hey, is anybody willing to have lunch with me and answer a couple of my questions? And I had somebody local who said, yeah, I'd be willing to sit with you and have lunch. And after talking with them, they offered me a position wholesaling with them as their acquisitions and dispositions guy. So just through networking.
Okay, so basically, so you started underneath of someone else's company before you started your own company?
Yep, and through them, in my first month I cold called like 600 people using a Google Voice number. I had no idea. They didn't give me a script. Like they gave me some very basic template, and I had a seller that had 3 properties. Got those 3 under contract, and we sold them. Made a lot of mistakes, lost a lot of money, but it was on their dime essentially, and they paid me like
Yeah.
15%, something crazy.
Okay, cool. So I mean that's really interesting because you really use the resources at hand, right? Were you getting paid any flat rate on that, or were you getting paid like a hourly, or did you just get paid flat on the deals that you closed?
So funny enough, I was getting paid commission only with them, and then through them, I met somebody that they were working for. It was a bigger fish in my market, and he does like 50 to 100 deals a year, and that's where I got my first 50 deals is as a disposition guy for this bigger dude.
Okay, so you went from acquisitions guy for a smaller company getting paid just flat. They probably loved you because of the fact like, hey, you know, like many of us, we can't afford to hire somebody right away. So hey, this guy's gonna work hard and just get commission only. And so then
Yep,
you're like, you learn that this other company, bigger, had a salary more of a salary type position. So you switched over to them, or was it still commission only?
commission only.
Commission only, but on dispo side.
Yes, and I had no experience, and the guy's like, I got 10 properties I need to sell. Can you sell them? I said yes. I had no idea what I was doing. I just faked it till you make it.
So how did
And I
so
did.
tell us about that though? How did you end up doing that? How did you end up like getting rid of the deals? Like what was your process in trying to find buyers?
So he gave me like a very basic kind of. He was a really great salesman himself, and through my sales experience, learning through him, I just put ads out there, and I made an ad, and he really liked it. So I just right off the bat, I hit the ad thing pretty good. I had a bunch of people interested, and his philosophy, which is different than mine now, but his philosophy was kind of like forced to make the deal, right? Really sell it. And now I don't do that so much, but I learned kind of both sides of that industry. So we kind of forced the sale a lot, try to convince the buyers. And it was really stressful. A lot of time
Yeah.
taking going out to the properties and whatnot. So,
So was it because the deals weren't as obvious that they're deals?
right. Yeah. And these,
Because of the volume.
we were looking for a special type of buyer, a premium buyer all the
You're
time.
look you were looking for a buyer you're looking for the new buyer pretty much all the time, the guy who like is willing to spend more, or the guy who has massive crews and they just got to keep the crews going. So really, that's you're trying to just push it up as much as possible because you're locking up more deals, maybe to increase net. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's really cool, man. So you entered into the space as acquisitions and then dispositions. So you kind of learned both sides of that. And how come you just didn't start your own business from the very beginning when you learned about
I never even wanted to get into wholesaling. It just kind of happened. Like I said, I thought I was going to just buy an apartment and I was going to be rich. Like I
it?
read
Okay.
that book and I thought that was the secret. So I was completely wrong, obviously. But
Yeah.
I just learned so much through wholesaling. I decided, hey, after a year working for this guy, everything was chaotic. I didn't really agree with the systems they were doing. I kind of tailored his systems to the way I would run my own business. And then I started my own business after I closed my first deal.
Okay. So were you basically kind of like starting your business? You were kind of like doing some stuff on the side basically while working for them and then closed your first deal. Like, okay, I figured it out and then started your own thing.
Yep. So I didn't want to compete with him. I started my own thing. I only had an investor carrot website and I got my lead through that. So it was completely, separate. And I took that thing, to the home plate and it was a $65,000 wholesale.
No shit.
So it was enough for me obviously to quit that job and start all my own.
So tell me about why did you create an investor carrot website or carrot.com website from the beginning?
I saw the other dudes that I was working for. I saw their website. I really liked it. It was $50 a month at the time, and that was the only thing I could do consistently, paying day in and day out because it's kind of automated. So, and I started dabbling a little bit, like sending out mailers, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I just happened to get this call, and I called them right away, and it just worked out.
What do you know like how are you getting people to come to the website though?
Oh, yeah, a little secret. So I don't know if it still works, but I had an Instagram, and I was doing the unfollow follow technique. Before it was like, I guess not, it was frowned upon. So I did that. And through doing that, people would visit my Instagram page. And I had my website, Alex Buys Houses, on there. And every time somebody followed me or checked out my page, they would click on it. And I guess that boosted the rankings because I was number one on Google, never paid for any SEOs or nothing. And so I
Huh.
think through doing that, that's how, that person came in. I was like number two on the rankings or something.
So it's through SEO. Carrot website, you did a little bit of free manual labor to get kind of some traction to the website. So Google's like, oh wow, people are coming here.
Yep.
Which is where a lot of people fail. They'll buy a Carrot website, and of course, I love Carrot. I love Trevor and his whole team over there at Carrot. And so like they'll get a Carrot website and then they won't do absolutely anything. They won't go create new, they won't create Craigslist posts, they won't create Facebook posts, they won't create some traffic to that website organically, which is very, very important in order to get that. And so you did it through people clicking through Instagram profile, and also it's probably a combination of that. And then Carrot by default has some of that SEO sauce in it, and so with the combination of those two, it was able to kind of bump up and someone found you through SEO, ended up being a $65,000 deal. How many months into having the website did that happen?
8 months.
8 months. So 50 times 8. $400 to make $65,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is one of them things where you can spend $800 a year on cookies from Walmart or whatever. I mean, that's a lot of cookies, or maybe Starbucks is a better example, $800 a year on Starbucks. Or you can, buy a website that puts you an opportunity to be able to make an extra 65 grand, right? And people make up the excuses that this is impossible, or they won't make a deal after 3 months and be like, oh, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, no, like you just got it. Consistency is really important. So there's a trend here, right? With everything that you've said so far, there's been a trend, right? That you have something different than other individuals in the sense that you're going to make it work. You're just going to kind of figure it out, and you're not going to just essentially give up. So that's really awesome. So 65,000 from wholesaling. What year was that?
That was 2019.
2019. Okay, so from 27 to 2019, you're out of the military in 2017, and then you come into you're working for that gentleman in 2018. You tried to work
Mhm.
with your dad for about a year.
So it was like 5 to 6 months, and then the end of that 2017 is when I was working for those first two people, and then the 2018, all of that was when I was working for the bigger dude. We did like 50
Okay,
deals together.
gotcha. Okay, and then in 2019 you went solo after the 65 banger.
Yep.
Okay. That's super awesome, dude. And again, interesting because very similar to me. I started doing tax delinquency and doing some overlay stuff and niche stuff with through calling first, but I started because of how I did. I built my own website from scratch initially, and I was like, I'm gonna have this like place where like my buyers can log in and see the properties I have available. I had this big idea, and then I found out Carrot already had it. I was like, well, just wasted 3 months of me trying to build it myself, being the nerd that I am, and it was already existed. Started the Carrot website, and in the first 3 weeks, we closed a $30,000 deal from our Carrot website, which came from a Craigslist ad.
Nice.
And so right away reinvested into that, and that was one of the deals that kind of helped jumpstart some traction into me being able to automate, because at the time I was still working for the government and traveling 50% of the year and everything else. And so it is interesting that the correlation there is the same still. So let's break into now. What is your operation like? What When you're doing this, do you think you're just going to continue doing carrot SEO stuff, or like how did you start to build out the business?
So immediately after that, there was an opportunity for mentorship, and I took it with somebody from Collective Genius. I think you've been there before, if not. Some of those members, actually, the guy I worked for, he was part of the Collective Genius, and then the guy I got mentored by was part of Collective Genius, and then so using his systems and strategies, that's how I learned. And what it was consisted of is pretty much burn and turn lists, because that seemed to be like the old school way, right? You pull those lists, hit them, and then you know you get the deals. The more volume you put out, the more you're going to get in. It was what I learned, and really how to do it virtually, and how to take down the leads over the phone, so I don't have to invest my time, is what I learned. And then kind of shortly, maybe a year or two into that, obviously COVID hit and things weren't working out the way I wanted it to. And so I really just wanted to get a good understanding of how data works and how to manage it, because I was using systems like InvestorFuse, Podio, and I just didn't really care for it. It just didn't work for me. And that's when I stumbled upon REI Sift, and it just kind of opened up a whole new level of understanding for the basics of my business.
I love it. So initially you were just pulling lists. Were you just focused on like high equity and stuff and like cold calling it, or what was your main marketing strategy?
I was spending like 1,500 a month on text blasting through Lead Sherpa.
15. Oh wow. And
Yeah.
1,500 including Lead Sherpa, or 1,500 just with, well, Lead Sherpa has the unlimited text for their price in a month for a certain amount. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
1,500 a month Sherpa. And okay, so I mean, to support $1,500 a month in texting, I mean, where were you buying data from and stuff? How were you getting the data?
Prop stream.
So prop streams. So were you pulling down like every month just new prop streams and having to skip trace them too?
Yeah, so I had like when I originally started REI Sift, I put like 60,000 records in there, and trying to manage all those, both virtually at my virtual markets and locally, I realized really quickly that when you try to go several different ways, it's really hard, especially when you're not established.
Yeah.
So that's when I focused on going in my local market, putting only 10,000 records in, because I can manage that a lot easier, understand it a lot easier, and that's kind of where I started to see really some success.
Okay. So out of curiosity, you had 65,000 from the wholesale. You separated from this other company. How long did the 65,000, like how much did you eat up of the 65,000 before realizing like, okay, this isn't like, there's a lot of noise here that's being created and I can't control it.
So in 2020, I think I made a little over six figures, and I was spending almost like 70 or 80,000 in marketing. So
Wow.
not a whole lot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. But you were still getting deals from the SMS.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. I mean, maybe if you continue doing that, right, it would have you would have ended up being able to refine the operation and continue to scale it. I mean, with your knowledge now, do you feel like you could do bulk SMS and do it really, really well?
Yeah, I feel like I have the management. So before I was never even like keeping track of who I didn't contact, who was being contacted. Sometimes I was hitting the same people we've already wholesaled their properties. Like there was just no organization. That's probably my biggest weakness. As you can tell, I'm really good at taking action, but when it comes to organization, that's my downfall. So I really just learning that over the past couple year and a half.
Okay. I love it. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I mean that's 2020. That at the end of 2020 you made that. So I mean, really, it's just the last year since you. When did you become an REISIP user?
I think it was in 2020,
Yeah,
end of that.
sometime later 2020. I could totally look, but um, okay, really, really interesting. I love the just listening to the progression and kind of what it is that kind of developed your thought process, right? Because obviously what you're doing now works and it goes against the norm, right? But something that I preach often is understanding like a lot of people try to build businesses to keep up with the Joneses rather than building business based off of lifestyle design. And before we started recording or before we were live, something that you had mentioned when you talked about staying at home and watching your kids because your wife has decided she wanted to get a job, so she didn't want to just stay at home or whatever, and you're already running the company, so why not watch the kids run the company, let her go do her thing. But something you said there is that you're only working like 4 to 6 hours a week right now, and you said that really you want the business to kind of service you and how you want to live, and maybe as your kids get older, you'll start focusing more time on whatever you want. Like right now, it's kids' time, business. As long as you're making money and you're able to pay for your things and you're building cash flow, which you are. We're going to talk about that cash flow in a little bit.
Yep.
Um, then you're happy, which goes against the norm, right? Nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to buy 10,000 or 16,000 records and I'm going to be able to just run a business off that. Like in the industry, that sounds like that's totally impossible. It's not possible to continue to thrive and get deals every single month or get enough deals in a year off of just 10,000 properties. Yet, real estate agents will farm a specific community of 3,000 properties that has a 10% turnover rate, and that'll be the only community they focus on, and they'll live a perfectly good life by turning over 30 properties a year in one community by being the agent in that specific community, right? And so just the people can't understand what you're doing, but then when you put it in the perspective of like, well, there's a lot more real estate agents than there is investors, and this is how they make a living. And so what you're doing makes total sense to me, especially because you know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. And like you got these deals that we're going to talk about off of 10,000 records, and you literally almost doubled your database, and you're going to be able to get more out of that, right? And so it's super, super awesome to me. So let's talk a little bit about your operation now. Where's the operation at today? What does it look like? How many team members do you have? Like what does a typical day look like in your operation today?
So right now it's just every maybe like an hour or two a week I'll audit my. Right now I have two VAs. I have a acquisitions VA, so somebody's cold calling 8 hours a day, and then I have a cleaner who, after we call them a certain amount of times, they go in, try to find relatives, and do the deep prospecting. So they can keep feeding each other and keep each other busy. That's what I have right now, and then I only get the people who are motivated, the most motivated, and then I'll call and lock it down. So there's another thing I haven't mentioned yet, and we could save it to the end if you want, but I have a potential $50,000 to $75,000 wholesale verbally agreed so far, but I'm working on getting the contract. So,
Hell yeah. I love that. Yeah, we're gonna break down active deals and some deal breakdowns for sure once we get through this process here. But so you have two VAs. One is a prospecting VA. They just do like cold calling, so like niche sequential. So they're calling each prospect and texting the phone number and going through that process.
yep, via Sensei Flow, and then using air call with that.
Okay, so the tools in your business right now is AirCall, REI Sift. What are you using to skip trace right now?
I use REI Sift, and then whatever doesn't come back or needs extra cleaning, we use Skip Genie.
Okay, so first location, REI Sift. Second location is going to be, oh snap, is going to be Skip Genie. And your admin VA, how does she get notified that, hey, these records need to be deep prospected or found the owner and stuff?
So we have a task that we assign over to her. So whenever it goes to that exhausted point, it will get assigned to her. And then she has a goal that she hits after. So if we have like a one-time skip where, we didn't have any results, she'll go in and clean those first. But typically she's able to get everything done that we need her to do in those niche lists that she'll just work on tasks for the rest of the day. So she gets like 40 to 60 tasks done. So 40 to 60 prospects cleaned.
Okay, so let me step back a second just so that I want to make sure that I have the whole flow here. So you have two VAs in your company right now and yourself. One of those VAs is cold calling a subset of your records every single week. What is their target for how many they call a week?
So we try to hit 300 to 400 a day.
Phone numbers or prospects?
Uh, just dials. So we want to hit maybe 25 to 50 prospects per day is our goal.
Okay. So 25 to 50 prospects a day, and that's including throwing back in the ones that the cleaner has cleaned, right? So that's like new prospects plus the follow-ups of the other ones. So they're kind of
Correct.
doing new prospects, follow-ups on the previous day's news, but then also handling these new phone numbers that the admin VA found for the people that they didn't reach previously.
Yep. And then whatever the admin sends over, they get priority.
Okay. So admin sends over gets priority over follow-ups and new.
Right.
Okay. And on average, that's 300 dials roughly a day. Okay. And then, so essentially, so as this caller is calling, what happens if let's just say I have one record and this caller calls it, what defines this record being exhausted for your company?
If it's exhausted, it's there's no more numbers to call either because they're wrong or dead. But if we just hit them 4 or 5 times and there's no answer, then we send them to that task that says, hey, find some more info. And they find relatives, and that's kind of where we branch out.
Okay. And that when you say call 4 or 5 times, what you're actually meaning is call, text, and leaving a voicemail for 4 or 5 days in a row, essentially.
Right.
And so it's really actually between like 9 and 12 touches over the course of internal to that week.
Mhm.
So it's you've actually hit that person pretty aggressively. And so now you're getting siblings information. And do you take when your admin VA finds that information, do they just populate it back into uh REISIF, or where do those phone numbers go for them to call? Do they add them into that record, or is there a spreadsheet or?
Yeah, so they'll immediately just add it as a follow-up if it's somebody we've touched before. If it's a one-time skip, we didn't get any numbers, and now we're adding numbers for relatives and whatnot, then what we'll do is we'll put it as no status and it goes into their needs work.
Okay. But how do they know for the phone numbers? How does the phone numbers of all the relatives, where do all the phone numbers of the relatives go?
They go into that prospect page, and then on the tags, we'll put possible relative.
Okay. Oh, so do you like hold on, do you add like a new do you add a new record for each relative, or do you add the relative's information to the property's record?
Correct. Yep. So the properties record will add all the numbers in because we usually have less than 15 numbers total, usually less than 10. So we just add it to the same record and then you put our
Okay, so
tag
there's
on it.
enough space. There's enough space typically, and
Yep.
business users are actually about to. It should be done next week. It should be done next week. You're able to have up to 30 phone numbers in your under a record now, and
Oh, that's
so
good.
that'll make it really easy to do that. And then you could tag the phone number as relative. As what I would recommend doing. But okay, sweet. So I mean that's a nice smooth process, right? Your calling VA knows exactly what to do. You have a task to notify the next VA what to do. That VA knows what to do. And so really they're just ping ponging back and forth, just, hey,
Yep.
knocking out some records, right? What happens after the exhaustion, right? So after it's like fully exhausted, meaning that you call the phone numbers, they got the relatives, you called the relative numbers and you didn't reach anybody. What's next?
So after it's fully exhausted, if it's not vacant mailing, we'll send mailers as well, and we'll continue to keep trying to find relatives, and even go as far as calling the neighbors. So we'll skip trace the neighbor and see if they know anything.
Okay. Really cool. Okay, sweet. So now that we have a good idea of that flow, and potentially if something kicks off and they're interested in selling, that becomes a lead in the system, which makes you get notified to call the lead. Or who's doing lead follow-up? Is that you?
So I'll call for the offer and the determination to see if it's, if it's worth the offer or not. And depending on how that goes, if they accept, obviously, I do the communication from there. But if it doesn't, then I'll have the VAs do a follow-up. So I'll put in the notes, hey, ask them if they're still interested in selling. If so, if they're still, if anything's changed for them. So I just kind of
So
add that as part of.
basically you just treat lead management as if they're just prospecting again.
Yep.
You want to know why that's super? You know what? I'm I'm so glad that that. I mean, I'm not. It's interesting to me that you say that because I try to express to people that niche sequential marketing, or what people know now as a sensei flow, we're actually kind of reverbing how what sensei flow is into sensei flows, bulk sequential and niche sequential being two different sensei flows, if you will. And I tell people that niche sequential marketing, which is what you're doing, it is literally no different than lead management. It is the same process. If you have a lead, the only difference is that you don't have to follow up for, 3 or 7 times in terms of calling all the different numbers. You already have the correct number, right? And you already know what the status of the seller is. And so you're just calling back with a different, hey, do you want to sell your house, to, hey, we're still interested in buying if you're still interested in selling, right? So it's just a different sales side. But as far as the process, it's identical. So you can totally have your prospectors handle your lead follow up because it's the same thing. It's a task that
Yeah.
needs to be completed at the end of the day. So I'm so happy that like it's super dope that you're just like reutilizing them just to handle that for you, because it keeps your overhead even lower. Now, maybe at some point there's going to be so many that you're going to need a third VA, but once that time comes, that time comes. So that's super awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead now and can we talk about some KPIs?
Sure.
Okay. So as of right now, I can see him now pulling up the KPI. That's like that gets me so happy. Like this is what y'all, this is what when I talk about first to market, or I talk about bulk, even bulk, sequential marketing companies, or what I'm calling, I haven't really thought of the full name yet, but I'm calling them king companies. Companies that are doing first to market as well as bulk marketing, doing both of those. It's like a king company. As you've kind of like evolved into doing everything in the right way. Imagine taking Alex's company as it sits now and it getting acquired by a company that's only doing bulk marketing and successfully doing it. Those two companies together creates a king company because they can choose 3 niches that Alex's department handles, and then they can have the rest of the company just hitting everybody. And so there's zero leaky faucets. You're doing the bulk, you're doing the niche sequential, and like that is a healthy operation, right? But let's talk about some KPIs. So, would you be able to go? What are we? Well, it's about the end of the month, so let's just talk about this month right now, okay? Or maybe we talk about the last quarter. I don't know, whatever you want to give me. But what I want is a period in time of dials made. Okay. After dials made, I would love to be able to hear like how many correct numbers and then how many wrong numbers, and just like the breakdown,
Yep.
whatever you got.
So this is for the last 2 months, because that's how long she's been with me.
Okay.
So we're at right now for dials, total dials, 13,861, which
Okay.
consists of 1,788 prospects. She's we got out of those 568 correct numbers, and I can give you the percentages to them here in a second as well.
Sweet.
So we got 32 leads. Any other? You want me to just go through all the numbers?
Yeah, I'd love to hear them all. I think everybody would love to hear
Okay.
everything. Yeah.
So we got 1,154 dead numbers, 181 DNCs. No answers, 11,625. So we got an 83% no answer rate, which is actually a lot. lower than what it used to be. And we have 522 not interested. So then
So a
she's worked
total, so
three.
then real quick, a total amount of, so 568 leads. So 500 and, okay, yeah, that adds up. Okay, go ahead.
And then we have she's worked 385 hours since yesterday, and then she's calling about 35 people per hour, almost 36, or 36 numbers dials per hour.
36 numbers, not people, or not prospects. 36 numbers an hour, or yeah. Okay. So, okay. So 83. Well, let's cover some more KPIs real quick. What is so the correct number to lead percentage is what? Do you have that on there?
Correct number to lead percentage.
Yeah.
I don't have that one,
I'll just
but
divide it. 568 divided by 32. So 17%. 17% of your correct numbers convert to leads. It's pretty cool. What is the correct number to prospects percentage?
correct number to prospects is 4.10. Or no, that's to dials. So what
Oh,
are we
that's what I
at
meant.
here?
Yeah, to dials, 4.10. Okay.
Yep.
So not bad. But I know this is the Ninja Cast, but I'm also going to give a little bit of advice, just for everybody else on how where I think would be a good place to focus, just so everybody understands the value of KPIs, and being able to do exactly what you just did is so important. You don't know how many people have done not done this, but then they go and they try 7 different skip trace providers. Like, how the hell do you what are you basing that off of? Like you just got like did you go borrow Barney's bag, right? Like, Barney's not really a big thing anymore, but you're pulling it out of somewhere, right? It's either Barney's bag or your ass, and so I don't know which one. And so you're able to actually quantify some KPIs here, and so that's super big, man. And I think people are really appreciate everything that you just did. What are you paying your VA an hour right now?
I pay her $5 an hour.
So far, 383 hours. So you've paid basically $1,900 and $15. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that 1,915 divided by the correct numbers. But for every correct number, it's costing you basically $3.40 for a correct number. That's fantastic. Like, in general, for people to understand, go do, like, look at SEO, and you tell me, in an SEO environment, how much a correct homeowner to a property is costing you. It's probably 16 $16 or so. I mean, it just really depends. And you're not getting the clarity that you're getting in this, because out of this, what I know is that out of these 1,700 prospects, we're not going to probably dig into this unless you have this information. Out of these 1,788 prospects, right now, what we know for certain is we know 568 of them. So about a third of them we've gotten in contact with. 75% of them we haven't. Okay. And so after a certain amount of attempts, after we do the second cycle, we know that that's the perfect people to send direct mail to long term, right? Because they're exhausted through dial. They're not answering the phone. That's not what their thing is, right? They're not gonna pick up the phone, not gonna answer a text message because you're already doing that. And so that's super powerful. Did any of these leads convert to a contract at all?
Just that one I mentioned, it's a verbal agreement right now, so nothing concrete, but I have a really good feeling about this one. So we have that one for sure. We've had a couple offers we've made, but
Okay.
nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy. Okay, and that's fine. And the reason why that's fine is because you spent $2,000 to get 568 people to follow up for eternity. Right? They're going to sell at some point, and so that is a big thing. 32 of these people express interest in selling. That they're going to convert at some point. 522 not interesteds, they're going to convert at some point. In fact, not interesteds are performing very, very, very well right now across the board. And every user I've talked to, they're saying they're getting contracts under not interesteds. As the market shifts, those not interesteds are going to become pretty motivated, depending on their situation or why you're calling them. And so that's huge. And so what I want people to realize is that this is 2 months of marketing. You spend about $1,000, $700, $800 a month or so, in I guess closer to $900, $950 a month, for a VA to call through these records, and essentially case them, right, and build profiles on them so that you can decide what to do with them next. If you wanted to, you could add a bulk dialer in here and you could generate some more leads and stuff, but your operation is really designed around lifestyle design, right? And so it doesn't really fit your plans to do that, primarily because you're actually also operating as an investor. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about now some deals, okay? Because we got some good KPIs right now. You're able to spit them out. You're healthier. I don't care if somebody's doing $600,000 a year or $500,000 a year. If they can't do what you just did, to me, your operation's better than theirs, like hands down, because theirs is a means to an end without the information, right? They're going to have a hiccup, or they're going to have to halt their operation and come back and build what you have available and how you're able to articulate it. And so you being able to have this means that you have the capability to scale in a very healthy way. And so that's fantastic. And you're not sacrificing not making revenue. So let's talk about some deals. So this year, okay, your big project has been some duplexes, a fiveplex. You've done some wholesale deals this year, flip. Let's just break down some deals. Let's do some deal breakdowns. Just start spitting them at me based off your favorite one first.
All right. Well, since we're closed on one as of 5 minutes ago, we'll do the flip. So I signed for it yesterday so I could make this. But the numbers on that one, we purchased at 185. The ARV was about 329. And we did all the work ourselves. That's the only thing I would have done differently this year. Is we did all the work ourselves. We put about 40 grand into it, and we had locked it up under contract for 340, and we closed just now actually.
Nice. So, okay, so 183, 40K, so about 220, and you went under contract at 340. So, I mean, if I'm doing my math right, that's a six-figure flip, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. And let's break down that flip real quick. How did that flip come about?
So that was through doing the Sensei Flow, our VA. She's not the VA I have now, but she was doing text blasting with every contact we do. And this person would not get on the phone with us. It was just through text. And we were able to do it all through text. Finally
When you
met up
say
with
text
them.
blasting, were you saying that you're doing bulk text messaging, or were you doing the text through the Sensei
Air
Flow?
call. Yeah,
Okay,
through
so
Sensei Flow.
not text blasting. I just want to make sure it's not
Yeah.
text blasting they did. It was a single one-to-one text message, like me picking up my phone and texting Alex, which I've closed. I don't know how many deals. Actually, my father-in-law has a rental because I was on vacation down in Citrus County. And he says, man, there's this property over here. I was sitting on my computer and the thing, and he does this like every time I'm down there. He's like, I got this property. Can you find the person for me? And I pulled it up and I opened up my phone. I found a few phone numbers. I sent a text message. The person responded back a few minutes later. And like 4 months later, he's like, hey, by the way, I ended up buying that little house. And I was like, oh, freaking awesome. Now he turned into a little duplex where it's renting. It's a car dealership renting one side and something else. I was like, just for a freaking quick text message. There's no excuses. And people tell me that what you're doing right now, oh, that's too complicated, or it's not predictable enough, and all this other stuff. Like you clearly just don't understand. That's the problem. $100,000 deal from a Sensei Flow. What was the vexation? What was the reason they sold?
This person actually was just a high equity. So they were just high equity, and they ended up being hoarders. But you know what's funny about your story is I flipped this with my father-in-law. So I
Oh,
thought that was
really?
pretty funny.
That's hilarious. So high equity. High equity. So did your father-in-law, did he fund it?
He did, yeah. So I brought the deal. He said, if you can get it for this price, I'll do it with you. And I was at 205 with the seller, and I was like, you know what, we just, 185 would work for us. They move forward, and so we just move forward.
Dang. So it was high equity. So you were essentially flying like was it high equity Vegas or just like straight high equity at the time?
At the time, it was just high equity.
That's crazy. But it was in a specific location that you wanted to buy in, essentially.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Okay, so you just made 100 banger off that, so 6 figures. Yeah, out of curiosity, are you with your father-in-law? Is that like a where you're paying him for the money, or did he help you with labor and you guys are just doing a split thing, or because some people are scared to do what you're talking about. In fact, I was just talking with somebody about the same kind of principle about working with your mother or father-in-laws or or just family members in general, and how you when it comes to money, like how you like if he sees, oh well, I'm only going to give you $20,000 for letting me borrow 200 grand, that's a 10% flat, that's good money, but you're making 80 grand at that case. So like, I don't know, how'd you go about that?
So he said, as long as you do the work with me, I'll do this with you. And I really didn't want to do the work because, yeah, I put so much, I probably put 300 hours into that flip. And we did all the work together. So, I mean, he did a lot more because he's more knowledgeable. I break more stuff than I fix. So that was we split everything 50-50. I pay for the repairs, he pays for the purchase. We do all the work together. And we hired some things out, but
I love that. I mean, that's super awesome to me. Like if I lived close to my father-in-law, I would absolutely love love to do something like that. Because I mean, he has a bunch of rentals, and oh, I think I lagged out for a second. I would love to do something like that with my father-in-law. So that's dope. Okay, cool. So 100K, boom, 100K. That's this year. Did you start that this year or did you lock it up last year?
yep, we started this year.
Okay, so that's 100K so far this year. I just want people to keep track here on numbers. So that's 100K Sensei Flow, which with 10,000, this is out of 10,000 records.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's do the next. What's your next deal?
So the next one's a duplex, and we locked it up at 85. It needed what we thought was like 15 grand worth of work. It ended up being like 30 to 40. So all in 125, and we appraised for 217. So we cashed out at 160, and then
Cash
we had
out.
lenders fees and closing costs and stuff. So because we use hard money.
So you only pulled out enough money to cut you pulled out enough to did you pull out all 70% essentially or 75%, or is that what you
Yeah.
did? Okay, but so a lot of people have different split opinions on this, pulling out the whole percentage versus only enough to pull your cash out. And it really depends on cash flow. So let's talk about cash flow in this duplex.
Yep. So it cash flows right now. Gross, I would say. Well, which is it cash flows. So it's $2,400 a month, or excuse me, $2,500 a month in total rents between the two sides, and we net after reserves, so maintenance reserves, capex, all that stuff, around $400 to $500 a month. Not factoring in reserves, we're at 800 to 900.
Okay. Um, and it's a brand new remodel, so you could be very conservative. With brand new remodels, what I always recommend people do is like if you put a new AC in, you're not going to need an AC for a long time. So rather than do like 5% for the AC, just whatever the cost of an AC is, let's say $5,500, divide it by the lifespan of an AC, which is typically 6 to 7 years, depending, maybe 15 years on a rental. And then so that might be $10 a month. So just hold back $10 a month, right? And so some people just do a straight 20% or 25%, for maintenance and capex or whatever. For properties like this, what I would do if it was me is I would say, what are my bigger capex items, and when am I going to have to replace them? What do they cost? Divide it by the amount of months that I need to until I replace, and then maybe that's only 10% total. So just something to keep in mind there so that you can net more cash on the front side. And because you have equity in it too, like you do, if I'm not mistaken, you have on that one about 60,000 roughly, $60,000 in equity. So your net worth went up, in addition to this. And how did you acquire this deal?
This one was a tired landlord. So she had multiple properties, and yeah, so she was interesting. She was an investor herself, and she was very sketchy. She tried to back out the day before closing, and I said absolutely not.
Oh,
I knew this was a hot deal, so I was like, there's no way.
okay. And was that the same situation? Niche sequential marketing?
Yep, everything's done through the Sensei. Yep.
Okay. So now we're at wait, what was the cash out on that? 15,000 on cash out, roughly?
Yeah.
So 15K. So now we're at 100,000 in cash, 15,000 in cash, that's 115,000 in cash. Plus 50 let's say just even it up, 60,000 in equity.
Hmm.
Plus, by the way, its value was at 217,000, which is about 9 to 11,000 a year in cost seg, meaning that, or not cost seg, but well, tax benefits, depreciation, right? It's about 9 to 11,000 a year in depreciation. So there's that. So you have an infinite ROI, 11,000 a year in depreciation, and so far you've made over six. The company's made over six figures. With another 60K in equity. Fantastic. Next one.
So it wasn't acquired this year, but we did the refi, so we finished everything this year. Is
Okay.
that okay to go over?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So it's the 5 units, the one I'm most proud of. I bought it myself. It was actually a wholesale that fell through the day before closing.
Oh, so you're gonna
And
wholesale this.
I was gonna make
I'm so
30,000.
glad you didn't do that.
I'm so glad I didn't either. It just things work out a certain way, and so you got to take them with what they are. And
Yeah.
at least that's how I believe. But so we bought this one at 150. I put 5 grand into it, did all the work myself because there was only one vacant unit. All the other ones were rented, under rented too. And I put 5 grand into it, and it appraised for 290. So all in 155, it appraised for 290. I pulled out the max at 217, and I think it was like a $62,000 cash out refi, and then whatever that equity, 73,000 equity. And it rents for 3,600. It's still under rented, by the way, way under rented, 3,600 a month. And I think a cash flow. I just got the statement today actually. I was netting around $1,400 a month.
Dude, next time you get one of those, just wholesale it to me, okay? Like you don't need this. So here's the big thing, like y'all, this is what I want you to understand is that this isn't just like luck. You know what I mean? Like this isn't luck. This is that we went over the story, we went over the process. You heard him spit out his KPIs. This is a combination of patience, grit, and the ability to take action when actions need to be done, right? Like those three character traits is what allows you to be able to have results, right? And so now you see this, you have, what is that? Net 1,800 a month net cash flow from two properties with another 62,000 in cash. So that puts you at 115, 60, like 180,000 in cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus 100,000, no, more than 100,000, 60, 70, like 115,000 in equity. Okay. Plus another, and in this one, make sure, please do not forget to do this, Alex. Make sure that you do a first year depreciation on this 5 unit.
Okay.
Okay.
This year, right?
This year, yes. Do because you closed on it this year, you did the refi this year. Do a cost seg on this because I mean you're going to end up saving. And I'm not a tax guy or anything like that, but you're going to be able to probably get like 50 to 60,000 written off on this 180 grand. Right. And so obviously that's a nice tax savings, because you're talking about 30, let's say 30% on 60. So you're talking about like you're going to save an extra 20 or 30 grand, like cash, not having to pay in taxes. So that's great. So please make sure you do that. And I wish I remember the name of the website. I'll have to get it to you, but there's a website that you can just do this. You can file it yourself instead of having to go, or your CPA might be able to do it. Okay.
Okay.
Because it's under a certain amount of units, your CPA can do it and it'll be way cheaper. You don't go to like a company and have them do it. It's either that or there's a website you can do it for like $150. Okay. Sweet. So 1,800 a month. Now, actually, that first duplex, that's split with your brother, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll talk about that in a second. So net to you is actually 1,600 a month because you own the 5 unit yourself.
Right.
1,600 a month in net cash flow in a 1 year time span from today's date to a year back from today, 1 year to date. 1,600 in cash flow, 115K in equity, 180K. Now, obviously, 6 months from July of last year to December of last year, you probably made more cash than 180K. But I just want to show people what a year can do. You know what I mean? Like this is in general, this is only like the last 6 months, but like you locked the other one up sometime last year. Not when did you lock that one up originally last year?
So we closed on that one in October.
In October. Okay, so you closed on it in October and you just refied it and everything this year. So I mean that's freaking awesome, man. With the lifestyle and it's dope. So is there any other deals that you wanted to break down? Or is that it?
Just this one I have right now. It's just a matter of me going out there and meeting them whenever they have the time to get the contract signed. But
Yeah.
it's a fire damaged property. It was also on high equity absentee owner. Um, it's a $450,000 house, but half the house was burnt and it's got a huge hole in the roof. So for a couple of years, rain's been getting in there. So I'd estimate $150,000, $200,000 rehab easy. But I'm locking it up for 75,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
gonna wholesale it for 130 to 150, and it sits on 3 acres. So I got it for the price of the land.
Hell yeah. That's fucking dope. Definitely update me once that one fully comes to fruition because I mean, there's no reason they wouldn't sign, it sounds like they need to get rid of the thing.
Yeah.
Um, but that's awesome. So we add that into the equation. You're yeah, there's a lot of things we could do here. I'm gonna give you advice that I never gave you on the KPI thing. But like there's definitely things that we can do to enhance this operation, right? The direct mail side of the house could probably be enhanced a bit to create some more inbound leads. But like overall, to be spending, you're only spending like 1,500 a month in your business right now, like 1,500 a month, y'all. 1,500 a month in $200,000 in equity, 1,800 a month in or 1,600 net to you, plus $180,000 in cash. Of course, also some of that 180K is split. Probably at least 60,000 of that is split with some other individuals. But still, 6 figures this year off of 1,500 a month. Your company net, right? Your company net is like 93% or something stupid. Like that's freaking awesome. And it's not like like, oh well, it has a means to an end. Like no, like this is going on a year of successfully picking up deals. See, the problem is that people don't have the patience. They look at this like, oh, I got to wholesale 10 properties a month in order to make money. Like, no, you could literally just get 8 properties a year, 5 properties a year, and you could build like a really solid rental portfolio and you could, get a bunch of cash. Like you don't need to do a ton. You just got to understand the math. You can live a stress-free life and build a business that feeds and thrives and helps you build more. And you can build on top of this and with another VA, when you really hone in on the KPIs, with one more VA, you could potentially double your business, right? Like for another $700 a month. focus on a first to market vexation, and boom, business doubles. And so that's how we do that. A lot of people focus on a lot of data rather than just being first to market with specific data. And you're an interesting use case because you're not focusing on a lot of data, but you're also not focusing on first to market. You're just focusing on specific data in the locations you want to buy in. So you just made your buy box and you're just focusing on the people that are living that buy box. And so that's really awesome. So, man, I freaking love it, dude. This is absolutely awesome to me. So no answer rate. That's our percentage we need to change. So going back to your KPIs, you had a no answer rate of 83%. That's the one we want to focus on. And this is why I want people to understand if and I know you said it already went down. But what you guys got to understand is that if he improved and just deducted that no answer rate another 10%, if he got it down to like 70% instead, he would also be closing more deals, right? And see, because his correct number percentage isn't bad, 4%, pretty typical. The problem is that he needs more people to be picking up the phone. The more people that pick up the phone, the more correct numbers that we're going to get. He has a 17% correct number to lead ratio. And so with that, we know that if we can increase, because we know how many leads to contract ratio we have, if we can increase the correct number ratio, if we decrease no answer by 10%, we're going to increase the correct number ratio, let's just say by, I don't know, 5%, right? Because we're going to be getting more, right? Or we're going to increase the amount of correct numbers we got, rather, but the correct number to lead ratio will stay the same, ultimately driving more contracts, right? And so yeah, by focusing on the one, we can basically build the roadmap or the whatever you call it, the cookie crumbs, right? We can see predictably how that changes. What does 10% on the no answer rate affect the lead generation at the end of the day? It has a direct reflection. So how do we do that, right? How do we fix the no answer rate? We want to make sure, number one, we're stir shaking our phone numbers. Are you doing that right now?
I just got it done this week, so.
Okay, so we have some KPIs to check. So split that. Make sure you have your dates on your tracker. I'm sure you do, and make sure that we start tracking the stir shaken KPI difference between before, because we want to be able to know from the date that you applied stir shaken to your phone numbers, what is our no answer rate after like 1,000. Ideally after the same amount of prospects, but after 500 or 600 prospects or so, you're going to be able to see, after like the next month, you're going to be able to see, oh wow, our no answer rate is at 65% instead of 83%. You're going to see a direct reflection. So that's the very first thing to do. After you do that, the next thing is going to be looking into some other KPIs, but we're not going to get into that. We're going to let you see what your percentage ends up being after stir shaken, and we'll go from there. But dude, you've shared a ton of just super awesome information here today. What I want to know is like, what do you think? What do you think is the with these deals that you did lock up? Like, what do you think was the underlying factor of why you have them? Like, what do you think makes the magic work? On the sales side, is there like a specific way you go about things? Why did you get these and not somebody else? Because I mean, they're just high equity. You just said yourself, there's some big monsters in your market. You're in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some monsters in your market. Why did you add this to your net worth and the big guys didn't? Is it your personality? Obviously, you have the sensei flow you're doing, so you have some clarity there, but there's something deeper than that.
I honestly think it has to do a lot with the sales and your personality a little bit. Because like I said, I was a shy guy, so I couldn't hold a conversation even if I wanted to before the military. So I think biggest thing is if people can invest in themselves. Like in the military, they really preached about public speaking, and they even had like a Toastmasters guy come in, and I started doing Toastmasters. So for those who don't know, it's a public speaking group, but just learning how to handle objections. In our script is pretty solid. It handles all the objections up front, like 90% of them. So I think if you have a good script that you can memorize, that you can just maybe not so much a script because I make it not sound like one anymore, but just to have something, to just follow through in your head, to sequence through, get all the information you need, build that rapport on the first phone call. And then on the second phone call, if that's you or if you're doing both phone calls, really just dial in on what their problem is and just try to make that solution work. Don't be desperate because the least desperate person wins. And I learned that from a couple of different people and just from my own experience. So remember, they want your service just as much as you want that property most times. And if they don't, it's probably not worth pursuing. Maybe you can dig a little deeper, force that deal to happen. But even the ones I forced in the past have been the most headache. So really, I only deal with the most motivated because it just life's so much simpler and easier and less stress.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. And when it comes to hiring the VAs that you hired, what do you think has been like, what do you think made it, you know, teaching them this flow to operate for you while you have this lifestyle? What do you think was the ticket there?
So I learned through, whenever I was doing bulk marketing, spending all that money, I didn't really train my VAs very well. And that's something I learned through the data to dollar challenge is, you guys had the lucid charts. I actually took the lucid chart idea, made it my own, and I put videos in there. So they click on it, whatever process they're in, they watch that video. So it's very hands off now for the training. We just do role playing. But I read traction or at least half of it and, letting go of the vine, as they say, and just learning how to do that and then properly training your VA. So 90% of the time when I hear people say their VAs aren't working, it's because they're not being trained properly and not given the resources to succeed. Um, Now there are some situations where, maybe the VA wasn't honest or they're doing something that they're not supposed to, and I've had to fire them for it. But I always say hire slow and fire quick.
Fire slow, fire quick. Love it. Okay. So just to summarize, okay, year to date, about 8 months, 180,000 in cash, 1,800 a month in passive cash flow, over $100,000 in equity, $20,000 to $30,000 a year in depreciation for the next 27 years. If that 5 unit, you're probably going to do a first year depreciation, so it's going to go down a bit lower. You need to do a first year depreciation, or I would recommend that. I'm not a tax advisor or anything, but get that tax break while it still exists because things are changing there. And you are focusing on 300 dials a day, and that includes everything. That's follow-ups. That's the whole sequence. 300 dials a day. One VA is the prospecting. You make your offers. You're your acquisitions guy, and you have one admin VA as well. So a total of between software expenses, like it's only about $500 a month in software expenses, and about 1,000 a month in VA expenses. So you're really looking at maybe a little bit more than that. It's right around 1,500 a month in total company expenses, something around there, or is it closer to 2,000? Um,
2000 to be safer, I guess.
yeah, so say 2,000. So let's just say $24,000 a year right now, right? We're not even fully through the year. So we're close to about 16,000 year to date. $16,000 in order to generate multiple six figures, and between tax benefits and cash, and nearly 24,000 a year in cash flow. So literally your cash flow right now can almost essentially pay for your operation entirely, and you could literally generate these deals and have like a net zero cost just by your cash flow, which is just freaking awesome. It is insane. And so the last thing I really kind of want to summarize with here and just kind of talk about, because we are kind of long on time here, is the idea of the whole $1,800. Let's say, because net to you 1,600. That's net. That's not including everything else. $1,600, and you're not going to be paying any taxes on that because of the fact that you're going to depreciate the assets. And so, in the military, and again, anybody who served a full 30 years, more power to you, right? Anybody who served a full 30 years but didn't build wealth on the side, ludicrous. The military, the government, it does not care about you at all when it comes to what you do when it no longer needs you. That's just the truth. Okay. Time and time again, we know this, we see this, we're cogs in the machine, right? And I really enjoyed my time in. My wife is still serving. And I'm 100% believer and backer of the military. Let me just put that straight. But you, over the last 8 months, how long were you in for? 6 years?
I did 4 years active, 1 year in the Guard.
Okay. So 5 years of service. How much do you make? You have disability? You don't mind me asking?
I do. I have 10%.
10%. Okay. So I think I'm at like 15. I make $400 a month off of my disability. And that's like from me having a fracture in my back, tinnitus, and these things that I deal with every single day while trying to go to sleep. It's a fucking joke, right? $400 a month. All right. And I was 8 years in. And so 16, almost $24,000 a year, plus the equity in the property from 8 months and 2 years of learning. Okay, is all it took. And that $1,600 a month, there ain't no chance the government's going to come in and just cancel that benefit, right? And so it's just amazing to me because $1,600 a month retirement, you have to at least make master probably to get, if you're enlisted. If you're an enlisted guy, that you have to at least be master, right? And there's a chance you might not ever make master in 20 years. Hopefully you do. So hopefully guys do, but uh, it's just one of those things that, like, I got buddies that are still in because they feel trapped, like they can't get out because they need their retirement, they want their retirement, but like you've just produced the same retirement in like 2 years, and you have the skill set to continue to thrive for your family compared to all the masters that I know when they're in, like all of them are like managers at Home Depot now. You know what I mean? Like my career field, I was an ammo troop. I didn't have like we can drive forklifts and we can build bombs. One of them's only useless or useful in the military. The other one is not, right? And so driving a forklift is a $15, $18 an hour task, 8 to 12 hours a day for somebody else. And so if you're in right now, if you're a veteran, like, dude, start working on the side, right? Like learning this information and understand, and this goes for anybody in the W-2. Learn and put your financial stability in your hands. It doesn't have to be a thing that you do 70 hours a week, right? The knowledge is important, right? Knowledge should be something that you attain and you thrive for all the time. That's a however many hours a week there is in a week. That's like learning is a constant thing. But the actual action implementation, $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, right? You don't even have to have the second VA. Most of the military guys I know pay $650, $450 a month for a freaking vehicle to drive from base housing to their job on base. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's ludicrous, right? Priorities is so important, man. And you've done a fantastic job, dude. I'm ecstatic to watch the rest of this year and the things that you accomplish. How can people reach out to you, man? Because I know that there's going to be people that are going to want to understand more about how you do things and stuff like that. What's the best place for people to reach out?
You can find me on Instagram, _Harshman. So my last name, _Harshman, and then on YouTube, Wholesale to Freedom. So I just put a couple videos up there every now and then, but that's mainly where I'm at.
Cool. YouTube Wholesale to Freedom at _Harshman. And then of course you can tag them in if you're in their RISIF mastermind community, just do at Alex, and I'm sure he'll pop up on there if you want to tag him in there and send him a DM on Facebook as well. So dude, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the transparency. We really broke down your business really granular here, like a full operation, a 6-figure operation for freaking $2,000. It just, there's so many people educating. You have to be spending like freaking $5,000 a month to make 6 figures. Ever since I made the original YouTube video, how to build a 6-figure company off $150 a month, there's been so many people that have just executed on it and proved the narrative wrong. And I don't know how you found out about REISIP, but I'm super thankful that you did, and I'm super thankful to be part of the story, man. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on. You know, I'm sure you get it all the time, but just what you've created in the system, in your time out of being in the military, you know, while we don't have the same story, it's very similar. So I just see how much you've done and compared to the time that you've been out, it's just, I think it's pretty impressive. So I think there's a lot to be learned from what you have to say in the system, and I appreciate you just, you know, letting that out there.
Yeah, 100%, man. Thanks so much, Alex. If anybody needs anything, reach out to Alex. You know you can reach out to us. If you guys haven't heard of the Data to Dollars Challenge yet, it is the flagship training that we have at REICF to teach you how to turn more prospects to leads and more leads to revenue systematically. Whole calendar. We cover acquisitions, we cover lead management, we cover marketing flows, the whole gamut. We have our wonderful teacher, Jessica. Quite literally, she was a math teacher when we hired her, and she has done just an absolutely fantastic job with that. It is still August at the time of this recording, and there is a coupon code somewhere. It's in the mastermind community, so you'll have to go find it there. But it's only good for August, and so go check it out, find it, whatever, or pay the full price. It's only $300, and the coupon's only 10%. So, you know, it is worth its weight in gold. I can't stress upon how important it is for any size of operation to learn the information there, and then hopefully from that you'll become an RISF user as well. Thanks again, Alex. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your transparency, and I appreciate honestly you as a human being, man. You have a fantastic personality, and I love it, dude. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you so much.
Alrighty, later, everybody.